Let's go ahead and call our Planning Commission meeting tonight to order in the presence of our vast crowd tonight. We'll begin with a call to order, and if you'd all join me in a pledge to the flag. Where'd the flag go? Oh, there it is over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, somebody should tell us that. Let's go ahead and have a roll call, please.
New member Michael Saragosa.
Present.
Member List.
Here.
Member Wolf.
Here.
Member Roby. Here. Member Friend.
Returning member Friend, aye.
I'd like to deviate from the agenda for a second and welcome our new commissioner, Michael. He comes, in case you don't know it, he's a veteran of the Placerville Historic Commission Wars. He's done some city service there, and I was just telling him for a long time I didn't think he was real, because when I first got on I was on the Historic Advisory Committee. They were talking about this wonderful leader that they had. And of course, I heard a lot of, well, that's not the way Michael would have done it. Because I showed up at my first meeting and they elected me chair. So I was like, well, I don't know, what does this group do? And they said, just do what Michael did. Yeah, but I don't know what he did. But anyway, welcome and thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to working with the rest of the commission. So
great.
Thank you.
And then, of course, Commissioner Friend, in the spirit of P.T. Barnum, pulled it off again. And this is what, your fifth go-round here now?
I think it makes me the senior senatorial member, yes.
Yeah. And so it's been five times you've run that gauntlet? Okay, so that being said, let's move on to the consent calendar regarding the agenda and the minutes of the meeting of March, wait a minute. The minutes of February 7th meeting. Any comments, questions? Anything needs to be pulled? Okay, if you're in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we move on. Now we're at the part of the meeting that where we can receive comments, public comments for any items not on the agenda. So since there's only one person from the regular public here, I'm wondering if you would, this is your chance to talk to us about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. If you're here about tonight's something on the agenda, okay, there'll be a time later to talk.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
point of order.
it has come to my attention that the flags are displayed in the wrong position, so I'm going to move them into the right position.
Okay, fine. So you have to salute when it walks by. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just deal with this distraction. We'll open the public hearing. There's only one item tonight, and that's for 3290 Sacramento Street. It involves a conditional use permit to revise. It's about a revision to a conditional use permit by adding a ground-mounted 50 kW emergency backup electric generator to an existing wireless communication facility operated by AT&T up on Sacramento Street here in town. So we'll move to the staff report, please.
Yeah, I've got that for you this evening. The request specifically would add a concrete pad within the fenced wireless telecommunication facility located there at 3290 Sacramento Street in south central Placerville. On that pad, 4x10, would be the placement of a 50 kilowatt emergency backup generator. That generator would provide emergency power during power failure at the facility. It would be powered by a diesel engine, and fuel for that generator would be stored in a tank located below the generator. Monthly testing of the generator would run for a duration of 30 minutes, approximately once per month. And the maintenance and fueling of the generator would occur as needed, but typically would be every 6 months or as necessary during an emergency situation. The applicant has submitted a noise assessment, and that was submitted in conjunction with their application materials. After conduction of a sound monitoring and predictive modeling of the project site and the vicinity, the installation of the equipment will not exceed the city's maximum noise level of 60 decibel A-weighted average at the nearest property line under normal operating conditions. The applicant's submittal package includes the project description, a narrative, emergency generator information and specifications, the noise analysis that I just described. There's some photos in there for you to see, a typical installation showing of what this generator would look like on the site. So those were provided to you. Site plans are also provided, and staff has put a copy of them on the wall behind you this evening. The site is a residential neighborhood, for lack of a better qualification of it. The site is surrounded by single-family residential uses, some of which are in the unincorporated El Dorado County, as well as others within the city limits of Placerville. It's generally at the southwest corner of the intersection of Sacramento Street and Skyline Drive. Zoning for the site and the immediate surrounding within the city is R1, which is a single-family designation. Parcels located southwest of the site, as I mentioned, are located in the county of El Dorado and are zoned R1A. The facility itself contains a 60-foot high lattice-style communication tower, one 320 square foot equipment storage building, one 100 square foot equipment building, 5 ground mounted equipment cabinets, cyclone fencing and access gate enclosure. The vegetative landscaping consists of trees and shrubs, which provide additional screening to the site. And figure 2 of staff's report shows 2 site photos showing the vegetative screening as well as the location of the ground-mounted equipment and cabinets. Figure 3 of staff's report provides a brief history of the permit issuance on this particular location over the years, spanning from 1966 into the most recent application that came before this body back in 2010, which is the subject of tonight's revision to that conditional use permit 10-08. From staff's perspective, the request's minor changes to the existing tower facility would allow for operation of the facility during power outages, which would provide a substantial benefit to those utilizing the wireless communication during an emergency. The request would not be detrimental to the public, the safety, or general welfare, or injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity, in that the generator would be screened from view, and noise generated during normal operation would not exceed the general plan threshold of 60 decibels at the property line. The request also qualifies for the exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15301B, that applies to the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, licensing, leasing, or other minor alteration of existing public or private utilities. Planning Commission's authority tonight is covered under sections 10.3.4 and 10.3.6 of City Code, or the zoning ordinance, which authorizes the Commission to evaluate changes to conditional use permits related to telephone communication facilities. This request is such a request, a revision to the existing CUP, or conditional use permit 10-08. Public notice was provided for this application, and this public hearing tonight was published in the Mountain Democrat pursuant to city regulations. Written notice was mailed to property owners within 500 feet. The city has received no public comment regarding this item tonight. Staff's recommendation is that the Commission make findings A and B in staff's report and conditionally approve CUP 10-08R, subject to the conditions within staff's report, as well as the revised conditions for CUP 10-08, also provided in staff's report. The applicant's agent is in the audience tonight, and that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and this is the time when we usually ask the applicant to make any comments if you want. You don't have to. Yeah, well, we'll find out here in a second if we have some questions. Did you have some now?
I have one question.
Okay.
Perhaps a question and a comment. And don't be afraid of the microphone, what are you?
Okay.
So I made a comment earlier off record, so I'll repeat it now just for the record. I'm surprised that these facilities don't already come with an emergency backup generator. It seems intuitive that they would.
They have batteries, which are usually go for I'm not sure what the battery length of time is, but they're doing the generators now because they allow for like 24, 48 hours, I think, of backup. And the batteries will only power the very minimum of the cell site, where a generator will power
Full
the whole
service.
cell. Yeah, the whole cell site.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
Something also to point out, the reason, I don't know if you've gotten, a lot of the carriers are installing the generators, and it's because of an FCC recommendation, because of a lot of the weather-related stuff that's been going all over the country, so it's kind of been a national FCC recommendation that we power up these sites so that people, because most people don't have landlines anymore. A lot of people use their cell phones and stuff like that. So they want these cell phones to be able to run when power is going out for, weeks at a time and stuff like that. So that's the reason for the request.
That makes perfect sense, and we should all buy stock in generator companies. And then one more question I had. I could not find anywhere in the report, so simply for the record, do you know what the fuel tank size is? How many gallons?
I believe it's 190.
190 gallons, and it's diesel?
Right, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
I was going to ask you the same thing about the diesel capacity. Typically, when you run this for 30 minutes a month, what would the lifespan of that diesel be? And so how often would that have to be?
About 6 months. We'll have to fuel it about 6 months.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, we close the public hearing now, bring it back to the board for discussion and possible action. Thank you.
Just another observation is I would imagine we might be seeing more of these requests because we have other sites that I don't recall having generators, so this may not be an uncommon thing to come before the commission.
I can maybe clarify that a little bit. The most recent, there were two cell towers that came before you within the last 14 months or so.
Yes.
Both of them had generators associated with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought, the last one in particular, up along the trail or whatever,
Right.
I thought did. So.
But yes, there are some existing facilities that have not come forward yet. So yes, it's potential that could come soon.
Just to comment myself, I don't want to muddy the waters on this one, but on this application, but I would think that if there's going to be more generators, that becomes more prevalent. Eventually, we'll see some regulations change requiring containment of these tanks. I mean, it's not something we would impose at this body, but that'll probably become, that's the other shoe that will fall eventually.
To my understanding, the tank is interconnected with the generator itself. It sits below the actual generation component. So maybe the applicant's agent can address that.
That was described that's described in both by the pictures as well as the physical description. Might want to turn.
Like a spill-proof, it's very self-contained. There's some spill-proof things. You can only fill it to a certain capacity, not to full. You can't fill it all the way. You can only fill it a certain point, and then there's some spill tanks and stuff like that, so to prevent any leakage and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Being an architect, I only looked at the pictures.
Just one comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I've actually had the experience of processing a number of cell towers and cell tower generators that were more of a retrofit to an existing site. And typically you may be looking at, and I'm talking about future ones, not this particular one before you, but you may be looking at the aesthetics. And so a lot of times you'll see a cell site that's within a residential area that is clearly visible to public streets or to the neighborhood, and you will typically see then these types of facilities would be enclosed within a cinder block wall or some containment so that the generator itself isn't visible. It used to be that those were put in a containment as a way of mitigating noise impacts, but now the newer generators are much quieter than they used to be. But there's still that aesthetic consideration. So we will look at that in the future, depending upon where they're to be located.
So, so boy, and I hate to delay an item that really should just be an automatic. But you raise a really good point, Pierre, and I did not consider this from an aesthetics because it wasn't raised specifically in the staff report. I'll ask the question for this particular request, but also applying it to any future, as you just kind of alluded to, and that is, is it within our purview to require aesthetic treatments to shield the view? Is that something we would have purview on?
I'll just make a quick response and I'll turn over to Mr. Painter. But typically you'll see these facilities, the actual utility lease area would be surrounded by a fence, and usually the fence has some aesthetic treatments, wooden slats, and then probably some landscaping around to shield the facility.
So in the absence of that, I guess it's a broader question, and perhaps for the benefit of the newer member, as well as my own edification, would it be within our purview when a request such as this comes before us for a modification that we could say, yes, okay, but at the same time, we do think some aesthetic visual treatments would be appropriate. Would that be within our purview to be able to request that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's important for us to know, and I'm not saying for this particular site, but there are one or two towers I know that are in similar areas. One by a school, and there's another one. It's been a while that we may want to consider that. Just remember that's within our purview to do so.
Chair Wolf, I think I would characterize this site as having adequate screening, as evidenced by the photos provided, as evidenced by the aerial view provided in your staff report.
And it's screened partially by the chain link fence with barbed wire at the top. I mean, because this aesthetic fits with what's already there, but fortunately it is pretty far back from public view.
Correct. And that probably is the reason why the ground equipment, with the exception of the structures that I mentioned and described, some of which are shown in those photos, but the ground electronic equipment that's shown in I think Exhibit 2, the opinion of the commission apparently back in the day was that the vegetative screening that exists today was adequate to screen that ground-mounted equipment, because the commission would have had an opportunity to require even those equipment cabinets to be additionally screened if necessary.
Any other questions for staff? And I'll go ahead and move that we approve the item as submitted and move findings 1A and 1B on page 4 of the staff report and the conditions of approval on page 4, 5, and 6 of the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
For the record, did Member Roby
Correct.
second it? Thank you. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Vice Chair Roby?
Aye.
Member Frem?
Aye.
Member List? Aye. Member Saragosa?
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll close that portion of the agenda, the public hearing, and move on to matters from commissioners and staff. Staff have...
Yeah, staff has a couple of things. We've got packets for the meeting 2 weeks from tonight, so please pick up those on your way out. I will take note as to each one of you picks one. With the exception of the minutes, I, of course, won't have the minutes from tonight's action, So that will come forward to you as soon as I can prepare them. So probably by the end of the week, you will have the draft minutes of tonight's meeting. Also want to let you know that 2 weeks from tonight, I have invited back former member George Lowry, and he is willing to come. So we all can have some time to appreciate his service. Staff does have a gift for him, and we have some other surprises for him as well when he gets here. So perhaps a roast is in order.
Is it an accurate assumption that on the agenda for next time we'll do the elections?
Yes, that is on the agenda, yes, as well as a photo.
So that, to me, that means wear long pants. All right. Okay, anything else from staff? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, I'll go ahead and I assume we can adjourn by consensus. So we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. You did